I still remember the way he looked at me that day, calm, calculated, almost smug. "Without me, you'd be nothing." He said it so casually, like he was stating a fact, like he was telling me water is wet or the sky is blue, and I smiled, a weak, cracked little thing that barely moved my lips. I didn't argue, I didn't scream, I didn't even blink. But something inside me shattered, not because he cheated, although yes he did, with the young assistant I had personally interviewed, not because of the betrayal, although I could still taste the bitterness of it on my tongue. What broke me was how deeply he believed I was nothing, not even worth a conversation, not even worth closure, just a woman to be discarded now that the shiny new toy had arrived. He didn't even try to hide it. The hotel receipts, the late meetings, the perfume that wasn't mine. I had known for weeks. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to be that woman, the one who got cheated on and stayed. But I also didn't want to be the one who gave up on her marriage without a fight. Turns out he had already finished fighting long before I even started. When I walked into the kitchen that morning, I saw the envelope first, neat, centered on the marble counter we'd picked out together 5 years ago. Inside, a single-page divorce agreement already signed. No note, no apology, no explanation, just an end. I looked around the house, our house, the one I helped decorate while he was building his empire, the one I stayed up painting while he was out, networking, building relationships, building trust, apparently, with more than just clients. Every corner of this house held my touch, my hands, my time, my love, and none of it mattered anymore. I picked up the papers and heard him behind me, buttoning his shirt like it was any other Tuesday, not even glancing at me. "It's better this way," he said. "You'll land on your feet. Maybe go back to teaching yoga or something." Teaching yoga? He made it sound like I was some child returning to a hobby instead of a woman who had sacrificed everything, my career, my financial independence, even my sense of identity, to support him, to build his dream. He took one look at my face and scoffed. "You always looked pretty when you cried. I'll miss that." And then he walked out. That was the moment I realized I had lost him long before I found out. And I wasn't just losing a husband. I was losing a part of myself I wasn't sure I knew how to live without. The woman who believed in us. The woman who thought love meant loyalty. The woman who thought she was safe. I sank to the floor, the papers still clutched in my hand. My chest felt like it was caving in, not from sadness, but from humiliation, rage, powerlessness. He had planned this, probably for months, maybe longer, and me, I was just a box to be checked off. Divorce her, move in the new girl, keep the business, keep the brand, keep the story. She was never that involved anyway, but he forgot one thing. I may not have had a job title, I may not have had a salary, but I was watching, listening, learning. I knew his systems. I knew how he built his brand, how he pitched, how he negotiated. I knew the suppliers, the platforms, the pain points. I had sat beside him through every sleepless night and every damn client call. He was right. I didn't have anything. But that didn't mean I wasn't anything. I sat there staring at the divorce papers, the ink already dry, and for the first time in years, I smiled for real, not out of happiness, out of clarity. This wasn't the end of my life. It was the beginning of a life I would build without him, beyond him, despite him. And maybe one day, he'd regret it. Not because I cried, but because I stopped crying. And I started building. They used to say I was the perfect wife. At dinner parties, his colleagues would compliment my cooking, and he would smile that cold, performative smile and say she makes everything look easy. But no one ever asked if it was easy, if I was happy. Because I played my part so well, I smiled, I served, I supported. Behind closed doors, I was the unpaid assistant, the silent strategist, the emotional punching bag when deals went wrong, the cheerleader when things went right. I kept the house clean, the fridge stocked, the calendar organized. I edited pitch decks, caught typos in investor emails, brainstormed campaign names, most of which he used. Not once did he say, "We built this." It was always his success, his company, his genius. And I was lucky to be his wife. I was lucky to be. He told me that often enough for it to sound true. I didn't have a personal bank account. Everything went into our account, which he managed. My name wasn't on the house deed, or the car, or even the business, though I helped him incorporate it. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. That marriage was about trust, about building something together. But slowly that trust began to feel like a leash. Every time I asked about starting my own thing, a small Etsy shop, maybe a candle line, maybe a yoga studio, he'd laugh. "Who's going to buy anything from you? You don't even know how to talk business." That one stung, not because I believed it, but because part of me did. He said it with such certainty, like he was doing me a favor by reminding me of my limits. That's how gaslighting works. You hear it so often, it becomes a lullaby. So I stayed small. I swallowed my ideas, my ambition, my voice. There was one time, I still remember it, when I came up with a pitch idea during one of his marketing dry spells. I scribbled it down while doing laundry, handed it to him without expecting anything, just hoping to help. 2 weeks later, he presented the exact pitch to his team. Word for word, he got the deal. The client loved it, and he never mentioned where the idea came from. When I brought it up later, he shrugged and said, "You were just rambling. I put it into a real strategy." Just rambling, that's what he called it. Like my thoughts were noise. Like my creativity only had value if filtered through his voice. I wish I could say that was the moment I realized what was happening, but it wasn't. Back then, I still thought I was being difficult when I questioned him. I still apologized when he raised his voice. I still believed love meant compromise, even if the only one compromising was me. I wasn't being abused, not in the way people imagine. There were no bruises, no screaming fights, just a constant quiet erosion of self-worth. He wore down my independence like water on stone. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, he'd remind me how good I had it. Some women would kill to be in your shoes. You think starting over is easy. You have no idea how the real world works. "I'm protecting you. You're too soft for this." And I believed him. Because when someone repeats a lie often enough, you start to question your reality. Especially when the lie is wrapped in the language of love. "You're too soft." "No, I was generous." "You don't know business." "No, I wasn't allowed to try." "You'd be nothing without me." "No, I just hadn't been given the chance to prove otherwise." But underneath all of it, the manipulation, the control, there was something even more painful. I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted him to see me as an equal, not an accessory. But in his eyes, I was a role to be filled, a box to be checked, wife, cook, house manager, emotional support animal. And the cruelest part, I filled those roles well. I gave so much of myself that by the time I realized what I'd lost, I couldn't even remember who I was before him. There's a kind of grief that comes with realizing you've been invisible in your own story, that the love you poured into someone became the very reason they stopped respecting you. I didn't want revenge, not then. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted to be seen. I wanted him just once to say a thank you, but he never did, because in his world, I was a shadow, useful only when I made his light shine brighter. No home, no savings, no job, no title. Just my clothes, a few pieces of jewelry that I'd hidden away out of instinct, and 2 cardboard boxes of belongings he hadn't bothered to toss. I moved into a friend's guest room. No rent, just gratitude and silence. I didn't want to explain. Didn't want to answer pitying questions. I just needed to breathe and think. For the first time in years, my calendar was empty. No meetings to prep for. No dinner reservations to book. No one to cook for, no one to care for. But me. I was 36, alone and invisible. But rock bottom, as they say, has a basement. One night while unpacking those boxes, I found my old wallet. The one I hadn't used in over a year. Tucked behind expired receipts and loyalty cards was a plastic rectangle I had forgotten existed the secondary American Express he once gave me. I stared at it like it was a ghost. He never asked for it back. Probably forgot it even existed. I was about to cut it. I had scissors in hand, and then I heard his voice in my head, low, smug, final. "You'll be crawling back." Something inside me snapped, not in rage, in resolve. "No, I won't crawl. I'll climb." The irony wasn't lost on me. He gave me that card for emergencies, and now with nothing but a battered heart and a bruised ego, this felt like the biggest emergency of all. But I wasn't going to use it to escape. I was going to build. I checked the balance. Still active. Still linked to his account. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't hiding. He left me nothing but this. And I would turn it into something. I took out $3,000, not to splurge, not to hurt him, but to fund an idea I'd been sitting on for years. You see, before I became his wife, before I became his assistant, I was an artist, not by profession, just by passion. I used to make candles, small batches, hand-poured, scented with blends I mixed myself, lavender and clove, tobacco and amber, eucalyptus and smoke. I gave them as gifts, sold a few at local markets before he told me it was a waste of time. But that night, holding that card, I didn't hear his voice anymore. I heard mine, so I did it. I bought supplies wax jars, essential oils, a melting pot. I built a Shopify store from scratch, taught myself how to edit photos and write product descriptions that sounded like me. I created an Instagram page, posted stories, showed behind the scenes, the mess, the hustle, the smallness of it all. I worked on my friend's kitchen counter, poured candles while everyone slept, took customer service calls with a fake business line. I routed through an old iPhone. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I didn't announce it on Facebook. I didn't even tell my parents. I just worked. There's something incredibly powerful about having no safety net. No plan B, no backup, only you, your instincts, your grit, and a single thread of belief holding you together. The first month I sold 17 candles, month 2, 48 by month 3. I was making just enough to move into a studio apartment, tiny but mine. And every time I heard his voice in my head, "You don't know business," I lit one of my candles, watched the flame flicker, and whispered, "Watch me." I never told him about the card, never needed to. He gave me the tool he thought I'd use to crawl. I turned it into a ladder, not to hurt him, to rebuild me. The early days weren't glamorous. There were no fancy offices, no launch parties, no investors, just me. A borrowed kitchen, burnt fingers, and a stubborn will to keep going. I worked 18 hours a day, sometimes more. I'd pour candles at night, let them cure while I napped on the couch, then wake up to pack orders before the post office closed. Each label, each thank you note, each box done by hand. Done with care. Done like my life depended on it. Because it did. I didn't have a marketing team. I had free Canva templates, natural lighting from a window, and a second-hand iPhone. I balanced on a stack of books to take product shots. I didn't have a brand consultant. I had YouTube tutorials, Reddit threads, late-night rabbit holes learning how SEO actually works. I didn't even fully know what conversion funnel meant until month 3, but I was learning. And more than that, I was listening to my customers, to their feedback, to their stories. A woman DM'd me after her first order and said, "I haven't felt this calm in weeks. I lit your candle and just breathed." That was the moment I stopped feeling like an imposter. I wasn't just making candles. I was creating space for peace, for pause, for women like me who had been told to be quiet, to stay small, to stop dreaming. Every order felt like a rebellion. And what surprised me the most, the people who supported me weren't friends. They weren't family, and they were strangers. Every share, every review, from people who didn't know my past, didn't know my name, didn't care about my broken marriage. They just believed in the product. And that gave me back my voice. By month 4, I had repeat customers. By month 5, I'd launched 3 new scents and started a tiny email list, 87 subscribers. I wrote every newsletter myself. And by month 6, I'd paid off every cent of the $3,000 I'd borrowed from his card. I remember clicking Submit Payment on the Amex portal. The balance hit 0. I stared at the screen, then quietly closed the laptop. No champagne, no celebration, just a long, deep breath. That was the moment I felt free, not just financially, mentally, emotionally. I no longer owed him or anyone anything. Month 7. I got my first wholesale request. Month 8, I started selling in 2 boutique shops in Texas. By month 9, I hit $10,000 in revenue, not profit, not yet, but I was in motion, growing, evolving, becoming something more than what I was told I could be. People started noticing, quietly, professionally. One day, I got an email from a small angel investment group in Austin. They'd seen my growth on social media, loved the brand story, asked if I'd be open to a pitch meeting. I thought it was a scam. It wasn't. I sat in a conference room wearing my only blazer, the one I used to wear when he brought me along, to pitch meetings as the wife. This time, I walked in as the CEO. I pitched like I had nothing to lose. Because they didn't say yes right away. But they didn't say no either. They asked for a follow-up meeting. That night, I went home and cried. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I had finally done something that was mine. No one held the pen. No one whispered behind me. No one edited my words or claimed my work. It was my story, my voice, my hands, my company. And for the first time since the divorce, since before the marriage even, I felt like a woman again. Not a wife, not an assistant, not a side character in someone else's rise. Me, I didn't call anyone, didn't post about the pitch, no humble brag, no screenshots. Because this wasn't about proving anything to the world. It was about proving everything to myself. And quietly beneath the surface, I knew I was building something he never thought I could. Something real, something enduring, something that didn't need his name or his approval. He said I'd be nothing without him, but I was already becoming everything I needed without him even realizing it. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I saw his name light up my phone. I almost didn't recognize it, not because I'd forgotten, but because it had been so long since I'd let myself look back. There it was, plain and casual, like he'd never burned my life to the ground. "Can we talk 3 words?" That was it. No context, no apology. My hands went cold, not from fear, from disgust. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew what this was. He wasn't reaching out because he missed me. He wasn't curious about how I was doing. He'd seen something. He'd heard something. And now he wanted in. I let the message sit for 2 days. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted him to sweat. To remember that I was no longer the woman who answered on the first ring. Eventually, I replied, one word, "Why?" His answer came minutes later, like he'd been waiting. "I saw your candle brand on TikTok. Didn't know you had that in you. I always said you had potential. Glad I could inspire you." Inspire me. He said it like he'd been my mentor, my muse, like the years of gaslighting and erasure were somehow helpful. As if his betrayal had been some strategic push to unlock my ambition. I didn't respond, not with words. Instead, I sent him a link to a podcast I'd recently been invited on Founders Unfiltered. In it, I told my story, the real one. No names, but enough to recognize. The blueprint a woman erased in her marriage. A card left behind. A quiet empire built from the ashes. I spoke with calm, with clarity. I didn't dramatize him. I didn't need to. The truth told plainly was devastating enough. He listened. I know he did. Because a day later, the threats started. First, a barrage of texts. "You're framing me as a villain. You wouldn't have any of this if it weren't for me. You're exploiting our story for clout." Then came the legal language. I'm entitled to a portion of the profits. "You used my credit. This is defamation. If you don't take it down, I'll go public." I didn't panic. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I sent him one final message. The card was under your name, but the success, that's mine. And it was. Every candle I poured, every late-night customer reply, every photo, every caption, every idea, all mine. He gave me $3,000 without meaning to. I turned it into $300,000 with purpose. He thought the card gave him ownership, but he forgot something critical. Money starts businesses, but resilience builds them. I contacted a lawyer, just in case. She read the messages, reviewed the podcast, and smiled. "He has no case, but he clearly hates that you have a voice now." Exactly. That's what this was really about. Not the money, not the card, but the fact that I was finally speaking and people were listening. He didn't want me back. He wanted back the control, the narrative. Too late. I wasn't his echo anymore. I was a headline, and no amount of revisionist history could change that. I wish I could say I felt powerful, triumphant, but what I really felt was done. Not angry, just done. He no longer had access to me, not my time, not my thoughts, not even my silence. He had become exactly what he once accused me of being, a side note. And I was just getting started. The first time someone called me a founder, I looked around to see who they were talking to. Because even after all the progress, the orders, the pitch meetings, the growth, there was a part of me that still didn't fully believe I'd earned that word. But I had. I wasn't just making candles anymore. I was building a brand. And the brand, it was working. 16 months after I poured my first batch, I expanded. Not just product lines, though we did launch a full spa set, bath salts, essential oils, linen sprays. But reach. We got picked up by 3 regional boutique chains. Real shelf space, real contracts, real purchase orders in the tens of thousands. I signed the deals myself, no lawyers representing my husband, no advisors talking over me, just me, a pen, and the steady hands of someone who knew exactly how far she'd come. The valuation came a month later. $3.2 million. That was the number an investor gave after reviewing our book's growth rate, customer retention. I nodded politely on the Zoom call, then muted my mic and laughed, not out loud, but the kind of deep, private laugh that lives in your chest, the kind that says he never saw this coming. But by then, it wasn't about him anymore. It was about the we I was building. Because I wasn't doing this alone anymore. My first hire was a single mom with 2 kids. She'd been working retail for years, barely making ends meet. She cried during the interview, not because she was desperate, but because I asked her what she wanted to build. No one had ever asked her that before. Then came another woman, divorced, brilliant. Told by her ex she was too emotional for leadership. She runs operations now, then another and another. By year 2, we had a team of 12, all women. Most of them had one thing in common: they'd been overlooked, underestimated, told to stay in their lane. But not here. In every interview, I asked one simple thing. What's something you were told you couldn't do? Because that's who we were building for, not the shiny, polished executives, but the quiet, persistent women who kept going even when no one clapped. The ones who raised children alone, went back to school. At 40, worked 2 jobs while hiding bruises behind makeup. The ones who lit candles at night, not for scent, but for comfort. This wasn't just a company, it was a reclamation. And yes, I saw the irony. The man who once told me I didn't understand business had accidentally funded a brand that now empowered the exact women he would have ignored in a boardroom. Poetic, really. But I didn't hate him. I thanked him. Because in some twisted way, his dismissal gave me permission to prove him wrong. And in doing so, I proved myself right. I wasn't weak. I was untested. I wasn't unqualified. I was uninvited. And now I owned the building. Every time I walk into our little studio, the place we pack orders, test new scents, shoot content, I feel it. Not pride exactly, presence. I exist, fully, clearly, without apology. I lead, I mentor, I make mistakes. I learn fast, I sign contracts. I negotiate supplier deals. I host investor calls with my toddler on my hip. Sometimes because, yes, I'm also a mom now. I built a life outside the narrative I was once handed. And I did it with women who were told they couldn't. Now we remind each other daily, yes, we can. Yes, we did. And yes, we're still rising. There was a time I believed that revenge had to be loud, that it had to come with fireworks, headlines, and an audience, that the only way to feel whole again was to make the people who broke me bleed, even if it was just their ego. But I don't believe that anymore. Now I just smile when someone tags my brand on Instagram, when a customer shares an unboxing video or a wellness blogger features our new candle line with words like elegant, thoughtful, soulful. And they don't mention him, they don't know him, they only know me, my work, my product, my vision. I don't have to tell the world what he did, because the world is already listening to me. He, on the other hand, I've heard rumors. Apparently, he's starting over. A new company, same pitch style, same buzzwords, still telling stories in interviews about his ex-wife who learned a lot from me, still trying to position himself as the mentor in my origin story, and I let him, because I've learned something powerful. Truth doesn't beg to be believed. It just keeps showing up. I don't need to defend myself, not when my team is growing, not when my customers are returning, Not when my name is on every contract, every trademark, every check. And not when I wake up every morning knowing I created this from nothing but grit, grace, and a single broken sentence. Without me, you'd be nothing. Oh, the irony. He thought he was the mountain I had to climb. But he was just the shadow I had to step out of. I don't hate him. I don't think of him at all, unless someone else brings him up. And even then, my answer is the same. The past is a chapter, not the title. I used to wait for an apology. I thought closure would come in the form of remorse, recognition. But now I know the only closure I ever needed was success. Not just in revenue, but in peace, in knowing I survived him, then surpassed him. And I didn't do it for applause. I did it because I could. I did it quietly, deliberately, beautifully, because quiet power, it's loud enough. There's something they don't tell you about rebuilding your life. You don't become someone new. You become who you were before. The world told you to shrink. I wasn't born to be someone's afterthought. I wasn't designed to be a silent partner, a smiling face behind the scenes, or a placeholder until he got bored. I was never just a wife. Yes, I cooked dinners. Yes, I stayed up waiting for someone who no longer saw me. Yes, I folded towels and booked appointments and made holidays special. But I also dreamed. I planned. I created. I just did it in secret because I thought I wasn't allowed to do it in the light. Now I know better. I can make dinner and I can make decisions. I can raise children and I can raise capital. I can nurture others and still nourish myself. I am not either or, I am and. I am both soft and strategic. I am both gentle and unshakable. I am both the hands that build and the mind that leads. There were years when I disappeared into someone else's story, when my name was only said at the end of introductions, and this is my wife. Now I write my own name. On contracts, on packaging, on payroll, on purpose. And if you're listening, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, if you've ever been made to feel small, if someone ever rolled their eyes at your dream or laughed at your ambition, remember this. I didn't get handed a second chance. No one gave me permission. No one opened a door. I took a forgotten credit card, a quiet idea, and a broken heart. And I built a brand. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to fight to be seen. You just need to keep going, because you were never just anything. You are everything once you stop waiting for someone else to tell you that you are.